In this video, I want to give you some tips about fitting and installing cabinets on the wall. It's not actually that complicated, especially when you understand a few tricks. So the floor, this would be the wall here, ceiling. Now, you always start with the lower cabinets. So, got the cabinet body here, and then the kick base, which may or may not go right to the wall. Now, your job, first of all, is to determine whether this cabinet is level, both in this direction and then from left to right as well. You want to correct that, and it's easy to do with some shims as needed underneath the kick base. Now, you might think, aren't I going to see that? Do I really want a gap on the floor? If it's a crazy amount of leveling that you need to do, then you can cut away the kick base at an angle to accommodate for that. In many houses, the shimming required is very minimal, and because you're kind of looking at this from up above, any gap there pretty much disappears. But you can certainly scribe that the bottom edge of the kick base in order to establish a level cabinet if you're dealing with some really wonky floors. Now, before you go any further, let me explain something that has to do with the design of the cabinet that you saw before. So imagine this is the side of an upper or lower cabinet, and this is the wall here. That's the wall. So the way the cabinets are built, the back panel does not go all the way to the back edge of the side stiles of the cabinet. Now, why would that be? Well, a pretty simple reason. It has to do with allowing you to adjust the fit of the cabinet against the walls. So the gap here allows you to accommodate for any bumps in the walls or any out of squareness by scribing the side stiles, because that's what you want to meet the wall. You really don't care what happens in between, but you do want a tight fit here and here on cabinets that are visible from the end. That's the situation where this matters. So when you have your cabinet fitting tight against the wall and you're happy, you're going to want to put some spacers in to fill that space before you go and drive screws. Now assume that there's a wall stud here, and you're going to want to drive a screw here. Well, in order for this to be a tight fit and a secure installation, you're going to have to get rid of any gap that's there. So the gap allows you to scribe, and the scribe allows you to fit the wall, but the gap has to be filled before you drive your anchor screw through that back strip that's part of the design of the cabinet. Now that could be a single anchoring strip, or it could be a 1/2 inch thick plywood back panel. Both options are offered in the plans, but that's what needs to happen here as you're anchoring the lower cabinets. Now traditionally, the lower cabinets are secured only through the top, not the bottom. They're resting on the floor, so they don't have to bear the same weight as an upper cabinet. And when there is a mounting strip, it's usually just at the top, and that's sufficient. Now, before you proceed with the upper cabinets, get a piece of scrap plywood or something. Just put it on top, just laying on top. It doesn't have to be fastened, but it gives you a work surface. Keep your tools on, and it also allows you to use some props, which is a pretty important part of installing the upper cabinets. So the prop would just be a hunk of 1x2 a little bit longer than necessary to occupy your desired space between the upper cabinet and the lower cabinet. Now, why a little longer? Well, the 1x2 should be installed at a little angle. It's just a temporary prop here, but by having a little bit of extra length, you can move the bottom end in or out to adjust that cabinet so that it is level from left to right. So you want that leeway. Having the plywood or sheet goods here allows you to put those props anywhere you want, anywhere you need to, in order to do the leveling. Now, the props alone are not going to be sufficient to stop the cabinet from falling against the wall, so you are going to need a helper to push that cabinet, hold it against the wall, while the weight of the cabinet is being supported by these props. And when you've got it all tweaked the way you want, then you can install some screws as needed to hold that in place. That's the process in a nutshell. What comes later is countertop installation, putting back the doors that you fitted, the drawer faces, doing all those little things. But this in a nutshell is how you get the cabinets on the wall, get them level, and get them anchored securely. I'd like to leave you with one more thing to do with mounting cabinets. If you've come this far in the project, you don't need to be spoon-fed through all the details. These are the basics, and that'll get you where you want to go. But when it comes to choosing screw length, there may be something that you don't realize is a couple of issues. First of all, the screw should be a fairly beefy one. This is a number 12. Don't use number 6 or 8. They're really too thin. Number 10 would be a minimum. And also, use a cup washer under the head like this. This helps to distribute the pressure of the screw over a larger area of the back panel that you're screwing into. It'll also help it to look nicer. Not that it matters a whole lot in the lower cabinets, but you will see these mounting screws in the upper cabinets when you take things out. So cup washers are definitely a great idea. Now, screw length. In this situation over here, we've got something typical. We've got wall studs, which maybe you're fastening your cabinet to those. In the course, I recommend, if at all possible, to replace the drywall behind the area of your cabinets with some plywood, minimum 5/8 of an inch thick. And that allows you to drive screws anywhere, in which case you don't have to find the studs, and you don't need terribly long screws because they're going to find something strong to fasten to right away. But whatever you do, you're going to want to have, in a stud situation, screws penetrating those studs at least an inch or an inch and a quarter if you're anchoring into studs. You don't want to go beyond this because there's a good chance that there could be wiring going through those studs, and you don't want to take the chance of hitting those wires. 1 inch would be the minimum, so something closer to 1 1/4 is probably what you're aiming for. So you're going to have to do a little bit of investigating to find out what the optimal length of screw is for your installation.